The grand hall of the stellar assembly stretched upward into a crystalline dome, where the light of distant stars painted shifting patterns across the gathered delegates. Admiral James Chen adjusted his formal uniform's collar, acutely aware of the weight of Earth's future resting on this first contact meeting. Around the circular chamber, representatives from 17 alien species watched with varying degrees of interest and disdain. The Zircarian delegation commanded attention from their elevated platform, their iridescent scales reflecting prismatic light across the chamber. High Speaker Nalox, their lead representative, sat with perfect posture in an ornately carved chair that seemed to float above the ground. His assistant, a smaller Zircarian with emerald markings, constantly adjusted holographic displays that floated before them. The human delegation will now present their technological capabilities assessment, announced the chamber master, their multilayered voice echoing through the perfect acoustics of the hall. Admiral Chen stepped forward, activating the holographic display embedded in his sleeve. The projection bloomed to life, showing Earth's recent advancements in quantum computing, faster than light travel, and defensive systems. He noted how the Zircarian's upper scales shifted, a sign of amusement he'd been briefed about by xenobiologists. Of particular interest, Chen continued, maintaining his diplomatic composure, is our development of advanced stealth technology. We've successfully created. High Speaker Nalox raised a hand, the gesture somehow managing to be both elegant and dismissive. Forgive the interruption, Admiral Chen, but perhaps we should move to more significant matters. His universal translator carried the perfect tone of polite condescension. I assure you, High Speaker, our stealth capabilities are quite. Admiral, Nalox's scales rippled with what Chen recognized as their equivalent of a chuckle. Our quantum detection arrays can identify a vessel's mass shadow from 12 systems away. We can trace gravitational distortions smaller than your planet's smallest satellite. The very concept of stealth became obsolete to the Galactic Confederation centuries ago. In the gallery above, other species representatives shifted uncomfortably. The Artaxians, known for their scientific achievements, leaned forward with interest, their crystalline bodies refracting light as they moved. Chen smiled diplomatically, remembering his briefing. Let them underestimate us. Of course, High Speaker, we bow to your superior experience in these matters. As the meeting continued, Chen's wrist device vibrated with an encrypted message. To anyone watching, it would appear he was merely checking the time. The message scrolled across his neural implant. Nigtingale in position. Zoro DTTGON Sazagine. Awaiting Phase 2. Capt. SCEN. The Admiral maintained his passive expression, but satisfaction bloomed in his chest. His daughter had positioned Earth's most advanced stealth vessel right under the Zircarians' supposedly infallible sensors. The ship, utilizing revolutionary quantum field manipulation and metamaterial cloaking, had slipped through the Confederation's detection net like smoke through a force field. Perhaps, Nalox continued, his scales now showing patterns of clear superiority, we should discuss the terms of Earth's integration into the Confederation. For your protection, of course, the galaxy can be challenging for emerging species. Chen noticed the Artaxian representatives exchanging knowing looks. This wasn't the first time they'd seen this performance. He also noticed how the Zircarian guards had subtly shifted positions around the chamber's exits. We would be honored to discuss such matters, Chen replied, sending a coded acknowledgement to the Nightingale. As the High Speaker launched into what was surely a carefully prepared speech about the benefits of Confederation membership, Chen thought about his daughter's ship, hovering silent and invisible just 3 kilometers from the Confederation's flagship. The Zircarians were about to learn a valuable lesson about underestimating humanity. But for now, Admiral Chen simply smiled and nodded, playing his role in this diplomatic dance perfectly. After all, the best place to hide was often in plain sight, under the arrogant gaze of those who thought themselves superior. The real negotiations hadn't even begun. Lieutenant Emma Torres watched her breath fog the observation window of the Nightingale's bridge before the environmental systems whisked it away. Despite the ship operating in ultra-stealth mode, the view outside remained crystal clear thanks to their quantum field manipulation technology. The Confederation flagship, Morning Light, hung in space less than 3 kilometers away, its crystalline hull reflecting the light of nearby stars. Status report. Captain Sarah Chen's voice came softly across the bridge. Even though their sound-dampening systems could hide a rock concert, the crew had developed a habit of speaking in whispers during stealth operations. Their quantum arrays are still scanning regular patterns, Captain, Emma replied, checking her holographic displays. They're looking for distortions at least 10 times larger than our actual signature. It's like they're hunting for elephants while we're smaller than ants. The bridge crew maintained their positions with practiced precision. The Nightingale's revolutionary stealth system required perfect harmony between its operators. One slight miscalculation in the quantum field generators or a tiny fluctuation in the metamaterial skin could create a ripple in spacetime that even primitive sensors might detect. They're beginning their third shift rotation, reported Lieutenant Commander Marcus Wong from his tactical station. Interesting. Their guard patterns have changed. They're concentrating forces around their diplomatic shuttle base. Captain Chen moved to stand beside his station, her movement so smooth the deck plates didn't register any pressure change. Show me. A holographic overlay appeared, highlighting the movement of Confederation security forces. Red dots clustered around key points of their flagship, forming what would be an impressive containment pattern if they hadn't already revealed their intentions to the watching humans. Their encryption is complex. Communications Officer Yuki Tanaka added, her fingers dancing over haptic controls, but not complex enough. They're discussing something called Protocol Ascension, multiple mentions of Earth and integration requirements. Sarah Chen's expression remained neutral, but her eyes narrowed slightly. She'd seen this pattern before in historical texts, the prelude to forced diplomatic submission. The Nightingale's presence here wasn't just about proving human stealth capabilities. It was about preventing another species from falling victim to the Confederation's particular brand of protection. Ma'am. Emma's voice carried a note of concern. They're powering up their secondary weapon systems, trying to mask it behind routine power fluctuations, but the energy signatures are clear. Record everything, Chen ordered. Every power spike, every troop movement, every encrypted transmission. The Admiral will need concrete evidence when the time comes. The bridge fell silent except for the barely audible hum of their stealth systems. Through the observation window, they watched as more Confederation ships took positions that could easily become a blockade formation. To anyone else, it might look like standard diplomatic security. But the Nightingale's sensors told a different story. New transmission intercepted, Yuki reported. There they're discussing containment protocols for Earth's orbital defenses. Her hands clenched slightly at her station. They're planning to disable our planetary shields during the integration ceremony. Captain Chen allowed herself a small smile. And that's exactly what we needed to hear. She moved to the center of the bridge, her voice still barely above a whisper, but carrying complete authority. Send the confirmation signal to Earth Command. Code phrase. Hubris before the fall. As Emma transmitted the coded message through their quantum entanglement communicator, untraceable and instant, she noticed movement outside. A Confederation patrol craft passed within 1 kilometer of their position, its sensors sweeping back and forth. The crew held their breath, more from instinct than necessity. The patrol craft continued on its route, its crew completely unaware of the human ship silently documenting their every move. Their quantum arrays, supposedly able to detect anything larger than a small asteroid, swept right through the Nightingale's position without registering even a flicker. Sometimes, Captain Chen mused, watching the patrol craft disappear into the distance, The best way to learn about someone is to let them think you're not worth noticing at all. The Stellar Assembly's grand hall had grown quieter over the past hour as more private conversations moved behind sealed doors. Admiral Chen watched as another group of minor species representatives were politely but firmly escorted from the chamber by Zircarian security personnel. The remaining delegates shifted uncomfortably in their seats, their various forms of body language broadcasting anxiety across species barriers. High Speaker Nalox's scales now displayed patterns of deep blue confidence as he activated a large holographic display in the center of the chamber. As you can see, the integration of Earth into the Confederation will proceed smoothly, following our established protocols. Through his neural implant, Admiral Chen received another encrypted update from the Nightingale. The message scrolled across his field of vision. Fleet movements confirm hostile intent. Weapons charging across multiple vessels, awaiting your order. These protocols, Nalox continued, his translator carrying tones of benevolent authority, have successfully brought dozens of emerging civilizations into our enlightened collective. The process is quite painless, I assure you. The Artaxian delegation's crystalline forms vibrated with subtle frequencies that Chen's diplomatic training identified as distress. They had seen this before, perhaps even experienced it themselves. Their chief representative caught Chen's eye and tilted their crystalline structure in a way that somehow managed to convey sympathy. Of course, Chen replied smoothly, Earth appreciates the Confederation's generous offer of guidance. However, we would like to discuss certain details of this integration process. Nalox's scales rippled with barely concealed amusement. Admiral, while your enthusiasm for negotiation is admirable, the integration protocols are quite standardized. For example, the temporary deactivation of planetary defense systems is non-negotiable. It's a simple security measure, you understand. On the Nightingale's bridge, Captain Sarah Chen watched through the quantum-shielded viewport as Confederation ships continued their subtle repositioning. Lieutenant Torres maintained her vigilant monitoring of their communications, each decoded transmission adding another piece to the disturbing puzzle. Multiple encrypted channels active, Torres reported in a whisper. They're coordinating weapon targeting solutions for Earth's major defense installations. Temporal markers indicate they're planning to strike during the integration ceremony. Sarah's jaw tightened. Continue recording. How many civilian targets are they planning to hit? None directly, Marcus added from tactical. Their strategy appears designed to force immediate surrender with minimal infrastructure damage. They want Earth intact, just defenseless. Through the viewport, they watched as another Confederation cruiser moved into position, its weapon port still concealed but humming with power that the Nightingale's sensors easily detected. The aliens' confidence in their superior detection systems had made them careless about masking other signatures. Back in the assembly hall, Admiral Chen maintained his diplomatic smile as Nalox outlined more non-negotiable terms of integration. The High Speaker's assistant was now distributing data crystals to the remaining delegates, containing what they claimed were simplified versions of the integration protocols. You'll find everything quite reasonable, Nalox assured them, his scales now showing patterns of complete dominance. The temporary placement of Confederation peacekeepers in major population centers is purely precautionary, and the resource-sharing agreements are quite generous, all things considered. Chen activated his neural implant's secure channel. Nightingale, execute Phase 3. In space, Captain Sarah Chen gave a quiet command. The Nightingale's quantum processors began compiling their evidence. Fleet movements, weapons signatures, decoded transmissions, and surveillance footage. Each piece was carefully formatted and prepared for broadcast across all frequencies when the moment arrived. Their arrogance is their weakness, Sarah murmured, watching another patrol pass blindly by their position. They're so convinced of their technological superiority, they never considered someone might be watching from within their own formation. The pieces were in place. Now they just had to wait for the Confederation to spring their own trap. High Speaker Nalox raised his crystalline ceremonial staff, its tip glowing with an inner light that drew all eyes in the stellar assembly chamber. The time has come for Earth to embrace its destiny within the Confederation. Our sensors indicate your defense fleet remains in a peaceful stance, demonstrating your wisdom in accepting our protection. Admiral Chen stood calmly before the assembly, his hands clasped behind his back. Through his neural implant, he watched a countdown ticker in the corner of his vision. 3 minutes remained until the Confederation's planned integration would begin. Before we proceed, Chen said, his voice carrying clearly through the chamber, I believe there are some matters that require clarification. Nelox's scales flickered with irritation. Admiral, we have been most patient with your species' endless questions. The integration protocols are not subject to further discussion. Our fleet stands ready to ensure a smooth transition. The threat in his words was barely veiled. In space, Captain Sarah Chen gave a subtle nod to her bridge crew. Begin broadcast preparations. Lieutenant Torres, status of their fleet. All Confederation vessels are in attack positions, Captain, Emma reported softly. Their weapons are hot but cycle-locked to prevent early detection. They're timing the energy signatures with standard power fluctuations. Clever, Sarah acknowledged, but not clever enough. Commander Wong, are we ready? Marcus checked his tactical display one final time. All evidence compiled and verified. Broadcasting systems primed. We can reveal ourselves at your command. The countdown in Admiral Chen's vision reached 1 minute. Nelox had begun the formal integration ceremony, his scales now gleaming with triumphant patterns. The remaining delegates watched with a mixture of resignation and carefully hidden fear. And now, Nelox announced, we shall begin with the standard security protocols. Your planetary defense systems will be temporarily deactivated for reconfiguration to Confederation standards. This is, of course, non-negotiable. Interesting choice of words, Admiral Chen replied, allowing himself a small smile. Non-negotiable. You've used that phrase 7 times today. I wonder, how many other species heard those same words before they lost their independence? Nelox's scales shifted to a pattern of warning. Admiral, I would choose your next words very carefully. The Confederation's patience has limits. Oh, I've chosen my words carefully, Chen said, just as we've carefully chosen our position. He tapped his neural implant twice. Nightingale, you may proceed. In space, Sarah Chen gave the command they'd been waiting for. Execute Phase 4. The Nightingale's quantum field generators shifted frequencies in perfect synchronization. The metamaterial hull plating adjusted its properties microscopically. In an instant, the sleek human vessel became visible to the naked eye, materializing like a ghost less than 3 kilometers from the Confederation flagship's command deck. Inside the assembly chamber, gasps echoed from multiple species as the vessel appeared on every display screen. Nelox's scales lost their pattern completely, shifting to a chaotic swirl of colors that reflected his shock. Impossible, he whispered. Our detection arrays failed to notice us. Chen finished for him. They failed to notice us for the past 7 hours as we recorded everything. Every transmission, every fleet movement, every weapons preparation. The Nightingale began broadcasting its evidence across all frequencies. Holographic displays throughout the chamber filled with damning proof of the Confederation's true intentions. Ship movements, weapons signatures, decoded orders for the planned subjugation of Earth. Your quantum detection arrays may be impressive, Chen continued as the evidence mounted around them. But humanity learned long ago that true stealth isn't about raw power. It's about understanding what people expect to see, and what they're too arrogant to look for. Through the chamber's windows, more human ships began to appear, materializing at strategic points throughout the Confederation fleet. Each vessel had been there all along, watching, waiting, and recording. The High Speaker's ceremonial staff clattered to the floor as the full implications became clear. The hunters had become the hunted, and they'd never even known they were being watched. The Confederation flagship's command deck, erupted into chaos as alarms blared across every frequency. Emergency lighting bathed the crystalline corridors in crimson as weapons systems activated, targeting the suddenly visible human vessel. Multiple targeting locks detected. Lieutenant Torres reported calmly aboard the Nightingale, her fingers dancing across holographic controls. They're trying to establish a firing solution. Captain Sarah Chen allowed herself a small smile. Initiate evasive pattern Delta 7. Let's show them why their targeting systems are about to have a very bad day. The Nightingale's quantum field generators pulsed in perfect harmony as the ship began to move. To the Confederation gunners, it must have seemed like trying to track smoke underwater. The human vessel shifted through space in ways their targeting computers couldn't predict, leaving phantom signatures that dissolved moments after their weapons locked on. In the assembly chamber, High Speaker Nolox's scales had shifted to a deep purple of rage and embarrassment. Fire. Fire on that ship immediately. His composure shattered as his orders were met with frustration from his weapons officers. Perhaps, Admiral Chen suggested mildly, you'd like to reconsider your position on negotiations. A Confederation cruiser fired its main weapons array, a burst of plasma energy that should have vaporized any ship caught in its path. The Nightingale's metamaterial hull shifted its quantum state precisely as the blast arrived. The energy passed through the space the ship occupied without leaving a mark, like lightning through clear sky. Remarkable, one of the Artaxian delegates whispered, their crystalline form vibrating with scientific fascination. They've mastered quantum field manipulation at a level we thought theoretically impossible. Lieutenant Commander Wong's tactical display showed the Confederation fleet's growing frustration. They're adapting their targeting algorithms, Captain, attempting to predict our movement patterns. Let them try, Sarah responded. Execute random pattern shift. Authorization, Chen Alpha 9. The Nightingale's movements became even more unpredictable, its stealth systems now operating on a quantum randomization protocol that made its course mathematically impossible to calculate. The ship seemed to dance between space-time itself, always 3 steps ahead of the increasingly desperate Confederation weapons. Confederation vessel approaching from Sector 7, Torres reported. They're attempting to establish a tachyon detection grid. Exactly as we expected, Sarah noted. Deploy countermeasures. Microscopic drones, each smaller than a grain of dust, deployed from the Nightingale's hull. They created a field of quantum distortion points that made the tachyon grid read nothing but false positives, rendering it useless. In the assembly chamber, the evidence continued to play across every screen. The Confederation's carefully crafted image of benevolent protectors crumbled with each new revelation. Other species delegates watched in growing amazement as humanity's true capabilities became clear. Your weapons cannot target what they cannot truly see, Admiral Chen explained to the increasingly agitated High Speaker. We've learned to exist between the moments of detection, in the quantum spaces your sensors aren't designed to comprehend. Another Confederation blast passed harmlessly through the Nightingale's position. The human vessel responded by briefly shifting its hull to complete visibility, appearing directly in front of the Confederation flagship's main viewport before vanishing again. That's impossible, Nolox stammered, his scales now showing patterns of fear. The energy requirements alone would be astronomical using your methods, Chen agreed. Fortunately, we found a better way. Humanity's greatest strength has always been our ability to approach problems differently than expected. The Nightingale continued its elegant evasion of the Confederation fleet's increasingly disorganized attacks. Each failed attempt to hit the human ship demonstrated the gap between assumed superiority and actual capability. Final countermeasure deployed, Torres reported aboard the Nightingale. Earth Defense Fleet will arrive in 3 minutes. Captain Chen nodded, watching the Confederation ships waste energy on another futile attack pattern. Sometimes the best way to win a fight is to let your opponent tire themselves out trying to hit what they don't understand. The dance continued, but everyone watching knew the steps had already been decided. Space rippled like disturbed water as Earth's defense fleet emerged from quantum transit. The ships appeared in perfect formation, their arrival synchronized to the millisecond. Each vessel bore the same sleek design as the Nightingale, their hulls seeming to absorb rather than reflect the starlight. Multiple quantum signatures detected, Lieutenant Torres announced on the Nightingale's bridge, suppressing a smile. Earth fleet has arrived exactly on schedule. The Confederation command staff watched in growing horror as their tactical displays lit up with new contacts. Admiral Chen's voice carried clearly through the assembly chamber. I believe now would be an excellent time to discuss those non-negotiable terms again. High Speaker Nullox's scales had lost all pattern coherence, showing nothing but chaotic swirls of color. This changes nothing. Our fleet still outnumbers yours significantly. Does it? Chen raised an eyebrow. Lieutenant Commander Wang, if you would be so kind. The space between and around the Confederation vessels began to shift. Like morning mist giving way to sunlight, more human ships materialized. They had been there all along, positioned throughout the Confederation formation, invisible, and waiting. Impossible, one of Nullox's advisors whispered, their scales practically white with shock. Our quantum arrays, our detection grids. We're looking for what you expected to find, Chen finished. The problem with believing you're technologically superior is that you stop looking for alternatives. While you focused on detecting large energy signatures, we learned to leave none at all. Captain Sarah Chen's voice came through the command channel. All stealth vessels reporting ready, Admiral. Phase 6 is complete. The Nightingale demonstrated its mastery of space once more, appearing simultaneously in multiple locations around the Confederation flagship before settling into position directly above it. The maneuver would have been dismissed as a sensor malfunction if not for the growing evidence of human technological supremacy. Your weapons are still charged, Admiral Chen noted casually. Would you like to see what happens when you fire them? A young Confederation officer, panicking, launched a salvo of energy torpedoes. The assembled delegates watched as the weapons passed harmlessly through 3 different human vessels. The ships hadn't dodged. The attacks had simply failed to interact with their quantum-shifted hulls. An interesting attempt, Chen commented. Commander Wang, would you care to demonstrate our response? The Nightingale pulsed once with a soft blue light. Throughout the Confederation fleet, weapon systems went dark. Emergency power systems flickered and stabilized, but their offensive capabilities remained offline. A targeted quantum cascade, Chen explained to the stunned assembly. Your weapons now exist in a slightly different phase of reality than their power sources. Don't worry, the effect is temporary, though we could make it permanent if you prefer to continue this demonstration. The Artaxian delegation's crystalline forms vibrated with what could only be described as scientific excitement. One of them turned to address Nullox directly. You should accept the humans' offer of negotiations, High Speaker. They have clearly mastered aspects of quantum mechanics that our own scientists considered theoretical. More human ships continued to reveal themselves, each emergence demonstrating a different aspect of their stealth technology. Some shifted through multiple quantum states, others seemed to bend light itself around their hulls. The display was both beautiful and terrifying. The choice is yours, Admiral Chen said quietly. We can continue this demonstration, or we can discuss a new relationship between Earth and the Confederation, one based on mutual respect rather than assumed superiority. Nullox's scales finally settled into a pattern indicating resignation. You had ships watching us this entire time. Of course, Chen smiled. After all, the best way to understand someone is to watch how they act when they think no one is looking. The Nightingale's crew maintained their professional composure, but pride radiated through their quiet efficiency. They had proven that humanity's path to the stars would be guided by innovation rather than intimidation. The art of invisibility had become the foundation of peace. The stellar assembly chamber had transformed in the hours following the confrontation, where once the Zircarian delegation commanded attention from their elevated platform. Now representatives from a dozen species gathered around the human section, their conversations animated with curiosity and emerging respect. The Artaxian chief scientist, whose crystalline form sparkled with intellectual excitement, led the technical discussions. Your approach to quantum field manipulation is revolutionary. Instead of forcing space to bend around your vessels, you've taught them to exist in harmony with quantum fluctuations. Admiral Chen watched as Lieutenant Torres displayed holographic demonstrations of their stealth principles. The young officer had been chosen specifically for this task, her ability to explain complex concepts in understandable terms proving invaluable. The key was changing our perspective, Torres explained, her hands guiding the holographic representation of quantum fields. Instead of thinking of stealth as a way to hide, we thought of it as a way to belong. Our ships don't fight against detection. They simply choose which parts of reality they interact with. Across the chamber, High Speaker Nalox sat with his remaining advisors, their scales showing patterns of deep contemplation. The evidence of their planned forced integration still played on several screens, though now interspersed with demonstrations of human technological achievements. Captain Sarah Chen's voice came through the secure channel. Admiral, the Confederation fleet has completed their weapons shutdown. Our teams report all systems are secured, and their crews are cooperating. Excellent work, Captain, Chen responded quietly. Maintain position, but stand down to alert level 3. Let's show them we can be gracious in victory. The Nightingale hung visible now above the Confederation flagship, its presence a reminder of how completely the balance of power had shifted. Other human vessels remained in their positions throughout the fleet, some visible, others still cloaked, demonstrating that trust would need to be earned. The Meridian delegation, known for their diplomatic insights, approached Admiral Chen. Their floating forms pulsed with colors indicating respect and curiosity. Your species has achieved something remarkable, their speaker communicated, not just in technology, but in understanding. You could have used this capability for dominance, yet you chose to reveal it in defense of freedom. Sometimes the greatest power lies in knowing when not to use it. Chen replied, watching as more delegations broke away from their traditional alliances to join the technical discussions. The Artaxians had already formally requested a scientific exchange program with Earth. Lieutenant Torres continued her presentation, now showing how human stealth technology could be adapted for peaceful applications. The same principles that make our ships invisible could revolutionize energy transmission, medical scanning, even space habitat construction. The Confederation's younger officers, particularly those with scientific backgrounds, showed increasing interest. Their scales display patterns of fascination that overrode their diplomatic training. Several had already approached Torres with questions about potential collaboration. Your integration protocols, Chen addressed Nalox directly, his voice carrying across the chamber, were based on the assumption of superiority. But true strength comes from diversity of thought, from finding new ways to approach old problems. The High Speaker's scales shifted to a pattern indicating acceptance. Perhaps there are aspects of the protocols that could be reconsidered. The Meridian Speaker's colors swirled with approval. The Confederation's method of expanding influence through force has long concerned many of us. Humanity has shown us there is another way. Captain Chen's holographic form appeared before the assembly, projected from the Nightingale. Our ships remain cloaked not out of hostility, but as a reminder. True peace comes from mutual respect, not from forced submission. Around the chamber, representatives from species long intimidated by the Confederation began to speak up. Each had stories of non-negotiable terms, of integration protocols that stripped away independence. Humanity's stand had given them the courage to seek change. The assembly that had begun with an attempt at forced integration was transforming into something else entirely. The first steps toward genuine cooperation between equals. The Stellar Assembly's Grand Hall looked markedly different one standard week after the confrontation. The hierarchical seating arrangements had been replaced by a circular configuration that placed all species on equal footing. Sunlight from distant stars still painted patterns through the crystalline dome, but now it illuminated a chamber of genuine cooperation rather than forced submission. Admiral Chen stood before the assembled delegates, his formal uniform adorned with a new symbol, a combination of Earth's flag and a stylized representation of the Stellar Assembly. The treaties we signed today represent more than just diplomatic agreements. They represent a new understanding between our peoples. The Nightingale hung visible in space beyond the chamber's windows, its quantum field generators operating in what the crew had dubbed transparency mode. Teams of scientists from various species had spent the past week studying the revolutionary technology, their findings leading to breakthroughs in multiple fields. Our stealth capabilities were developed not for dominance, but for survival, Chen continued. They taught us that true strength often lies in patience, observation, and understanding. These are principles that will guide our future relationships. Captain Sarah Chen's holographic form stood beside her father, representing the fleet that had changed the balance of power. The Nightingale and her sister ships will continue their patrols, but with a new mission. We will serve not as hidden watchers, but as guardians of the peace we've built together. High Speaker Nalox, his scales now showing patterns of genuine respect, rose to address the assembly. The Confederation acknowledges its errors. We had become so convinced of our technological superiority that we forgot the most important lesson of civilization: the need to grow, to learn, to adapt. Lieutenant Torres, who had spent the week leading technical exchanges with other species, activated a holographic display in the center of the chamber. It showed the proposed structure for a new scientific coalition, with Earth's stealth technology as the foundation for numerous collaborative projects. Already, we've seen applications beyond military use, Torres explained. Medical scanners that can observe without interfering with cellular processes, power transmission systems that lose virtually no energy in transfer, construction techniques that could revolutionize habitat building. The Artaxian chief scientist's crystalline form vibrated with enthusiasm. Humanity's approach to quantum mechanics has opened doors we never knew existed. By learning to work with space-time rather than against it, they've shown us a new path forward. Through the chamber's windows, more ships became visible, vessels from various species incorporating elements of human stealth technology. Each represented a collaboration between Earth and another civilization, proof that sharing knowledge led to greater advances than hoarding it. The integration protocols are officially suspended, Nalox announced, his scales shifting to display formal patterns of declaration. In their place, we propose a new framework for interstellar cooperation, based on mutual respect and shared advancement. The Meridian delegation's colors swirled with approval as they added, "Let it be recorded that humanity's greatest victory came not from superior firepower, but from showing us a better way to approach the unknown." Admiral Chen moved to the signing platform, where representatives from all species would formalize the new agreements. We came to the stars hoping to find friends, prepared to find enemies, and discovered something more important: the chance to build a genuine community of equals. Captain Chen's hologram smiled as she watched her father sign the first treaty. The Nightingale's crew had maintained their professional composure, but pride radiated through their quiet efficiency. They had proven that humanity's greatest strength lay not in technology alone, but in how they chose to use it. As the signing ceremony concluded, the assembled delegates watched a final demonstration. The Nightingale and its sister ships performed a synchronized maneuver, shifting through multiple quantum states in a display that resembled an ethereal dance. It served as both a celebration and a reminder. True power came not from domination, but from understanding. The stars beyond the chamber's dome seemed to shine brighter, illuminating the path toward a future where technology served wisdom rather than force, and where strength was measured by the allies one made rather than the subjects one claimed. A new chapter in galactic history had begun, written not in the language of conquest, but in the quiet whispers of ships that had learned to dance between the stars.